Yes, guys, welcome back to more GBFC. Today, we are going to talk about the downfall of Manchester United under Ruben Amorim. There was a comment that was left on my video a few hours ago, and it prompted me to make this one today because we focused a little bit about Manchester United on more GBFC, but I, for one, am not a believer that the root of the issues at Manchester United lies with Ruben Amorim. There was always going to need to be a fall guy because there was always going to be a total revamp. There was always going to be the issue of the Glazers, whether Ineos came in, Jim Ratcliffe came in. Man United fans may have had an idea about what was going to happen, but the reality has been very different. And look, I'm not going to say how Man United fans should think, what Man United fans should think. I'm here today to give my opinion about what has really been the problem this season for Manchester United. And I'm going to start straight out the gate by saying this. Erik ten Hag won the FA Cup for Manchester United last season. In the league, it wasn't good enough. And with Manchester United winning an FA Cup, as much as I don't want to belittle the competition, it isn't good enough if you're not going to be finishing in the top four. At minimum, Manchester United, there is an expectation to be challenging for titles. That expectation, it's been so many years now that expectation has probably changed. But for Man United fans, it must be very difficult to see season after season the damage that's being done with poor recruitment. The hearing of how bad the finances are is a huge problem. But as well as that, it's not just about how they've allocated the transfer budget. It's about this. It's about Erik ten Hag winning that FA Cup. And then the indecision and the fact they've kept him on at the start of this season was always the wrong call. Erik ten Hag sacked by Manchester United after 2.5 years as manager with side 14th in the Premier League table. If we take a look right now, Manchester United, 33 games into the season, are still sat in 14th place in the table. Now, when we talk about Ruben Amorim, we're talking about a manager who at Sporting Lisbon was lighting up Europe, lighting up Portugal, Europe's top clubs. Everyone's talking about where is Ruben Amorim going to manage. If Ruben Amorim would have walked into a job at a club that wasn't in disarray off the field, wasn't going through this crazy change under Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe and all of the stuff that's happening at Manchester United, Ruben Amorim is walking in to a toxic environment, to a bunch of very average players where even the so-called best players, in my opinion, at Manchester United actually think they're better than they are. And as well as that, they've spent a lot of money on a lot of these players that just simply are not good enough. To judge Ruben Amorim as a manager, to say he is the right guy, he's not the right guy when he's not had a pre-season. He's not had a summer transfer window. When he walks in the end of October, beginning of November, he plays his first game against Ipswich. It's a 1-1 draw. Obviously, that game in itself, there was a lot of hype. United fans are going into that thinking, new manager, he's got a great record at Sporting, he's going to come in, and it's going to be fine. Lo and behold, it hasn't been fine. Most Man United fans are aware that it's not necessarily Ruben Amorim's fault. Yes, he's not really helped himself. I think the way that he's incessant on playing the three at the back system, that is his way. We're seeing it with Maresca at Chelsea. Like, he wants positional play. We are going to invert fullbacks. Even if the personnel at Chelsea doesn't fit it, that's what Maresca's going to do. It's the same with Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. Now, Patrick Dorgu comes in the January transfer window. I would say that if Amorim is able to add a bit more salt and pepper and a few more good quality players, because look, there's a lot of very average footballers in this Manchester United team. It's as simple as that. If we look at the starting 11 that we saw yesterday, I know that this is a bit distorted in comparison to what the best 11 is because United are resting players for the Europa League now, because that is their get out of jail card for this season. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Onana is, for me, just not a Premier League standard goalkeeper. But I would also say that he was bought with the right intentions, but then never utilised. Man United don't play the way that Inter Milan did when Onana was showing how good he was. So you bring in a goalkeeper, which I've said it with Chelsea's keepers, right? It's a position that you don't skimp on. You don't just go and get yourself an average one because then you get average results from average goalkeepers, right? Onana is a systemic goalkeeper. He's a goalkeeper that wants to play a certain way with the ball at his feet. And Man United haven't been doing that. And they haven't been doing that effectively. So you've got these players who actually did quite well against Wolves, I thought. I thought Amas was decent. Fredrickson gets a debut as well in the Premier League. But this team overall, Mazraoui I think is a decent footballer. Eriksson is past it. Ugarte, still up for debate if he fits the Premier League. Dorgu could be a decent player. Kobbie Mainoo is a good player. Garnacho thinks he's better than he actually is. And I think Rasmus Højlund might genuinely be the worst striker that I've ever seen in the Premier League for Manchester United. I genuinely mean that. And then you go to the bench. And you got Diogo Dalot, who one game he's brilliant, next game he's atrocious. Bruno Fernandes, as much as I'm not a massive Bruno fan, he just does show up for this Man United team. And he's been a man on a mission. He's been almost possessed to try and dig Man United out of this very deep grave that they're in right now. Mason Mount, it's been a bad signing from Chelsea. Chido Obi Martin, very, very young. Lenny Yoro, so much promise. And then Harry Maguire, Casemiro didn't come on against Wolves, but it is not a Ruben Amorim squad. And I think Ruben Amorim is right now the fall guy. The same way at Chelsea, that I wouldn't necessarily say it's all Maresca's fault, but when he doesn't do himself any favours, I'm like, you kind of deserve what you're going to get because that's football. But it's about how Man United have operated off the field. How they have spent a lot of money, kept Erik ten Hag in a job last summer, and just bought some really average footballers. I also think you can't really ignore the situation that happened with Marcus Rashford, where Ruben Amorim wasn't necessarily too happy with the way that he was training, didn't see him being a part of the squad. But then you look at the way that Marcus Rashford has played at Aston Villa, and I can understand why Man United fans might be like, well, why didn't Rashford get more time? Why was there such a discourse? And I think Rashford is a player that had been at Man United for so long that had seen this accumulative build-up of issues that existed before Ruben Amorim arrived, probably embodied a lot of it, whether it was his fault or not. It's credit to Amorim, in a sense, to actually come in and be like, right, this is what I need, this is what I want. If you don't match that blueprint, then you're out of the door. And then I think for some players, they just need a rehoming. And I think with Rashford, it wasn't, he just became a bad player overnight. I think he was so in it at Manchester United, and he'd been in it for so long, and he'd just grown out of the club, or the club had grown out of him. And I don't necessarily think it's about, oh, Rashford was a bit too big for his boots or anything along those lines. He just needed to be loved again at a different football club. We've seen it countless times with players. Sometimes they look like they've just lost all that ability. Next week, they sign for a new club, play for a new manager, and they're back. They're revitalised. There was also Garnacho, and apparently Chelsea were close to signing Garnacho. Amorim wasn't convinced about him either. Are you ever going to get the best out of a player who a couple of months ago, especially with someone like Garnacho, who does think he's a big deal, but he didn't get that move away, and then he is kind of being forced to be used by Ruben Amorim because they don't have any other options. What can you do? There was damage done there, and nothing was really done about it. Do you know what I mean? They didn't sell Garnacho. They didn't sign a replacement for him in January. So we've kind of just been waiting for this Premier League season to end if you're a Man United fan. So the saving grace in Man United's season is the fact that I think they might win the Europa League. Athletic Bilbao in the semi-finals over 2 legs, it's going to be really difficult, the way that Lyon was. But Manchester United this season and last season, by winning that FA Cup, the club right now is living off of moments. There are moments that paper over the cracks. And I think the biggest crack at Man United right now, it's broken from every angle. And it really does require time. And I know as a Chelsea fan hearing that, people are going to be like, well, you're such a hypocrite because you're not accepting that at Chelsea. I say everything that's wrong with Chelsea, and I think there's a lot of similarities with Manchester United. Poor recruitment, bad squad building, bad squad management. The fact that United have actually won trophies, or the FA Cup last season, I think has genuinely hindered them. Because if they would have been realistic and been like, right, Ten Hag's not going to take this squad any further. We've won an FA Cup, but what's he actually going to do with this squad in the Premier League? If they would have accepted that and fired him and brought in Amorim at the start of the season, or if it wasn't Amorim, someone else, give that manager a pre-season, let him look at this squad and let him see, right, I'm going to need this and this and this and this, then it might have been a different story. But the fact that Manchester United genuinely could finish 17th in the Premier League, they're 2 points above West Ham, who are on 36, and United are winless in 4 in the league. Amorim has said he's going to be resting players with those Bilbao games in mind. At this point, the fact United have even lost 15 matches in 33 and a 14th, the season in the league has been done for for so long. But the saving grace is that you could win the Europa League and you might just do it and then you're back in the Champions League. If you're back in the Champions League, not only do you have the fact that you're Manchester United, which means players still want to play for Manchester United. It's a huge club. We know that. But you've got Champions League football to offer. If you're going to stick with Ruben Amorim, and Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, they've said Amorim's got a say. We want him to be involved with the transfers. We want to know what kind of players he wants. Yes, there's probably going to be a focus on young players. Maybe that's what they need at United right now. They need to invigorate this squad with some energy. And I think a lot of the players that do have the energy is channeled in the wrong way. Kobbie Mainoo, it's been unfortunate because he's been injured. I think if he wasn't injured, maybe things would be a little bit different, but I don't think he's that player that could have dragged this whole team out. Garnacho, incredible promise, but it's just promise. And he's definitely acted way bigger than he actually is. Rasmus Højlund, sorry, but wow, how is that guy running the line for Manchester United? But if you win the Europa League, and you're in the Champions League next season, and recruit for Amorim. Because I genuinely look at the managerial market and I look at Manchester United and I just think, well, if Amorim was willing to take this job in the first place, and he was so good at Sporting, I know it isn't the same at Man United, I get that, but who else could you get? Who else would you want that would actually come and pick up the mantle and be like, I'll sit and suffer through this? And look, it's going to be difficult. Manchester United have proved this season they are more likely to win a cup, like they did last year in the FA Cup, like they might do this year with the Europa League, because on their day, they're Manchester United, so they might win a trophy. But in the league, blimey, I genuinely look at everybody above them, and even Everton. They got a new stadium to come. They might even be better. I think everybody above Manchester United are still, maybe at the start of next season even, going to be in a better position and better equipped for a 38-game league season than United are. They have got so much deadwood in their squad, and I do think they've got a good manager. And I think he's going to need time. This has been a weird one because obviously I'm a Chelsea fan and, Maresca, he's not even been there a season. I'm already frustrated with him. But I have said, Maresca, get Champions League football, stay, have another season. But please change the football a little bit. We need a plan B. If he doesn't, not good enough. Sack Pochettino for less. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, Man United fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If it's worth anything, I think you're going to win the Europa League. So I think you've got Champions League football next season. But reality is, the club has been ran so poorly from inside to out for so long. And Amorim is just the current fall guy. Thoughts in the comments.